Welcome, everybody. Welcome, fellow patriots. Welcome, fellow deplorables. Welcome, all rock dwellers. Welcome once again to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Sharron Angle, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network, with a shout out to our listeners in Jacksonville, Tampa, and the Villages, Florida, Las Vegas and Reno, Nevada, Macon, Georgia, Lancaster and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Boulder and Colorado Springs, Colorado, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Long Beach, California, and now Washington, D.C. and Alexandria, Virginia. We're everywhere. We are everywhere, as our producer Rick Trader would say. Today I'm joined by my co-host, the Doctor for the Right, Dr. Nasir Shaikh. Nasir, thank you for joining me, and welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Sharron, welcome to be co-hosting with you again, and let's start it off by what I always do and say it's just an absolutely another great day to be alive and well and free and living in the United States of America, the greatest country in the history of the world. I've got my usual American flag tie on with the American flag in the background. And Sharron, another great day to begin. So what do we have there to talk about?
Well, Dr. Shaikh, Dr. Wright, Dr. Nasir Shaikh, we have our guest with us. Would you please introduce him and make him feel welcome?
Thanks, Sharron. Certainly. We have Dana Allen, who is a leader of a new television network called America Uncensored News Network. Dana was also the co-founder and the chairman of Newsmax.com from 1998 to 2000. He's also been the president of a bunch of companies, president of American Investigator Television from 2000 to 2001. He was also the founder, the CEO, president, and chairman of Sequoia Data Corporation from 1987 to 1996, where he founded the first pure e-commerce company, which went to market with CompuMarket. Dana, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Thank you, Nasir. Last time I saw you was at CPAC in the flesh.
Absolutely. A great, once again, I think that's my third one, so counting. I know you've been there many, many more. You know, you had an article out there which we want to get into called The Big Lie About Political Parties and Family Values is Exposed. But before we go to that, to some of our listening audience and those that are viewing us on your TV network, yes. Give them an idea as to, what came about, why another TV network. They're about with all the other, cable news outlets and TV networks out there. So give us a sense of how this all came to fruition and what was the sort of thinking and the dream behind it, and where are we now and where are you heading it?
Sure. Well, probably most of the viewers of the Conservative Commandos radio show probably know what the problem is. It's maybe the biggest problem we have in the United States, which is our own news media. And there are some exceptions, like Fox is definitely better, but at the same time,
right?
Yeah. But they're still afraid of certain stories. So I think there's a need for it, and a lot of people are unaware of things. And what we're going to talk about is, something that really hasn't been corrected in the media. And that is, you have Democrats out trying to promote another false idea, and they censor things. Let's say, when racism is talked about, well, almost every racist murder ever committed in the history of the United States since the Democratic Party has existed, which is 1828, has been committed by Democrats. The lynchings, the Japanese internment, the Cherokee Trail of Tears, all this was official policy of the Democratic Party. So they don't want anyone to know that. That's just one example. It's just their history has been hidden because it has to be hidden, because most Americans really couldn't stomach being part of the Democratic Party if they knew the truth about it. Now, our purpose is just to tell the truth, uncensored news, but that's just an example of one thing that's been censored.
Now, one of the things that we'll probably be putting this up here, you had a chart on, and let me sort of give an idea basically in terms of this, where you're talking about family structure.
Yes.
And one of the things, just like you talked about, it was the act of our president, Democratic presidents, Lyndon Johnson, 1964, and the whole thing in terms of, the Great Society and what they were trying to do. And in essence, they've gone back now, and some of the historians that have tried to dig, like you're saying, they try to whitewash this stuff, the Democrats and the leftists. Yeah, but if you go back there, you will hear President Johnson on some of the tapes and even in the writings that they historically put using the N-word.
Absolutely.
Yes. Oh, sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
he was considered a connoisseur of it. People in the Senate, and there were a lot of extreme racists that were basically supportive of the Ku Klux Klan at the time, but they said the senator that used the N-word more than any other was Lyndon Johnson. And he did it to people's face, to black people, to their face, to his chauffeur. And then he told the reporter once, he says, what I'm doing for these N-worders is I'm going to buy them and get them to vote a Democrat for the next 100 years. He actually told the reporter that that was his motive for that. And Rick and I interviewed, very fortunate, a great American hero, James Meredith, the guy that integrated the University of Mississippi, and he didn't want to talk about politics except for one thing. He wanted to talk about Jesus, and I greatly admire this man, and he risked his life doing this. But what he said is the government purposely destroyed the black family, and he's talking about what you're talking about, Nasir.
Well, the late Senator Patrick Moynihan also had done some studies himself, and I think he came to some dubious conclusions. But one of the things that he talked about was that trying to, when you know what the source of the reason was, the disintegration of any family structure, and the stat that we're going to be putting up there, later on, basically talks about where you've got Democratic families, 2 parents, then you've got independents, and then you've got Republicans. And let me just go to that. And you're basically showing that from the time period of 2000 to 2016, those in the 18 to 55-year-old that are still married, half are Democrats. Over 60% are Republicans. So which is basically, in that, it's counterintuitive to what they're trying to basically tell us, that's happening out there, that, Democrats are the ones with family values and Republicans aren't. So counter that argument.
You're right. And what they've done is they've taken like the state, I believe it's either Kentucky or it's actually Arkansas, that has the highest rate of divorce, votes now Republican. It voted Democrat for about 150 years, but now it votes Republican. But this is anyone that wrote this down on a test in college, in a legitimate college course, in statistics would be flunked. I mean, that doesn't mean that the majority of these divorces are amongst Republicans, because 55% of people vote Republican. So what this report went in is it actually looked at who was getting divorced. And what it found is not only were the Democrats in Arkansas getting divorced much more than the Republicans were, they're getting divorced less than Democrats were in the most divorce-free states in the United States. The ratio is about 10%. And so it's just a total big lie. They're trying to present it that Republicans don't raise their children in families as much as Democrats do. It's the opposite of the truth. And how they do is just looking at these states. So the truth is, in Arkansas, is Democrats have an extremely high rate of divorce in Arkansas. Republicans have a low rate of divorce because there's enough Democrats there. That's why overall Arkansas has a high divorce rate.
And you know what? If you were to take that, and I can, lend some credibility here in terms of just, if you take a look at the various populations, let's say, if you take a look at in the Asian population, Laotians, Cambodians, Filipinos, those from North Korea, they happen to escape from there, but South Korea, China, Japan, Indian Americans, Pakistani Americans, that, if you take a look at all of that, you'll see, and if they happen to be, and most of them tend to be Republican, you'll see the family structure there, the divorce is minuscule. Yeah. I mean, in some communities, it's approaching, less than, 1%. And it's not because it's so hard to get a divorce. It's just that the family structure is so intact. They've got, besides just the mother and father, it's the grandparents are there, and there's a support structure. And you talk about that also in an article, that it's the entire family structure that's around, not just that nuclear family is still intact. And that's something that the Democrats and leftists have found out, that if you want to disintegrate a society, attack the nuclear family, disengage it from itself, and you will start to see the demise of what's happening.
That's right. In fact, that was in official writings for the Communist Party 60, 70 years ago, that they actually wanted to break apart the American family so the Soviet Union could defeat the United States.
Well, Dana, we're coming up onto a break, they're telling me here, but could you hold on for until we get to the next segment? We'd like to hold you over for another segment.
Be glad to.
Thank you. Well, here you are listening on the Conservative Commandos radio network, and we're coming to you from the Conservative Commandos radio studios and around the world on the internet with TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, American Political Radio, Leading Edge Radio Network, and also on AM, FM 24/7, and now can be seen on the AUN TV Broadcasting Network in Northern California. Folks, we'll just be back in a couple of minutes. Don't go away. We'll be back with Dana in just a few.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America. And get this, did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
Welcome back, listeners, and thank you for staying with us here at the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Sharron Engel with my co-host, Dr. Nasir Shaikh, and with a shout out to our listeners in Jacksonville, Tampa, and the Villages, Florida, Las Vegas and Reno, Nevada, Macon, Georgia, Lancaster and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Boulder and Colorado Springs, Colorado, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Long Beach, California, and now in Washington, D.C., and Alexandria, Virginia. We're everywhere. We are everywhere. And we've been talking with our guest, Dana Allen, who is the leader of this new television network, America Uncensored News Network. And Dana has been talking to us about an article that he wrote, "The Big Lie About Political Parties and Family Values is Exposed." Dana, thank you so much for staying with us through that break. And I want to pick up the conversation where Dr. Wright left off. He was talking about family values, and you were talking about how the Democrats have closely aligned themselves with others that have tried to undermine the fabric of the United States by actually attacking the nuclear family. So You quote a guy here, this Nicholas Kristof, who says that Republicans or conservatives don't practice what they preach. It's actually the Democrats. Where does he base that on? Because listening to you, it doesn't seem to have any factual basis.
Yeah, it's solely on the fact that there are some Republican states that have high divorce rates, and there's some Democratic states that have low divorce rates. But that's not 100% Democrat or 100% Republican. It's like, 45, 55. And when they go right into the real numbers, which is the only thing a serious scientist could do on this, they find out that not only do the Republicans stay married more than Democrats in the high divorce states, they stay married more than the Democrats in the low divorce states. It's about 11% gap between the two, which is a lot. And then if you get it into concentrated cultural areas, like the most Democratic voting city in the United States is Detroit, it probably has the most destroyed family unit, or whatever you want to talk about, in the United States. It's, maybe at the most 10 or 15% of the children in Detroit grow up in a nuclear family. The least Democratic city in the United States is Provo, Utah, and it has almost non-existent divorce. So it is the opposite of what they claim. I don't think they're stupid or ignorant enough to do this. This is just a ploy, and they don't think anyone's going to catch them.
Well, and that seemed to be exactly what your article pointed out, is that he was going to find his facts to support whatever his ideology was. He didn't want to tell truth. He just wanted to tell his agenda. And I was interested in this other statement here. Teens in red counties are more likely to be living with their biological parents compared to children living in blue counties. So
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit, because that's really what this is all about, isn't it? Is that next generation.
That's correct. And that's why, we compared those two cities, Detroit and in Provo, and they're opposites on politics. They're opposites on how many children are allowed to grow up in nuclear families. The death has always separated families, but I'm talking about divorce-separated families or never married families. And the job situation in the United States is the best in Provo, and it's the worst in thing. And why is the job situation so terrible in Detroit? Partially it's regulations, but they have a 50% illiteracy rate. That's like on the headlines of Detroit papers, they say Detroit has a 50% functional illiteracy rate. So how do you have jobs when you can't read or write? So when you destroy the family, it tends to destroy education and literacy, and that destroys jobs. So they all go together, and you think, well, this costs the Democratic Party. No, it doesn't. Nothing benefits them more than to destroy jobs, cities, neighborhoods, families, and individual lives. And that's what's happened in Detroit. And we have the least destroyed family unit in Provo. It's where more people are flocking to than any other city in the United States. Highest population growth, the best job market. The murder rate's 1. Murder rate in Detroit's 46. They all go together. And so the Democratic Party today is greatly rewarded for destroying families and jobs. And we need to make them pay a price for it. We need to tell the truth about it, because if we do, maybe this will stop. And I feel sorry for those children in those neighborhoods. I once got lost in North Philadelphia. I thought my life was in danger. I drove for it seemed like an hour from like 2nd Street to 90th Street. And the whole time I'm saying to myself, children are growing up in this neighborhood. And this is, just like North Korea practically in terms of how dangerous it is. And it just isn't right. And us, patriotic Americans, we have to figure a way how to rescue these children from these horrible neighborhoods.
Well, and it's obvious that the Democrats are not into rescue. They don't even want to rescue the ones that have come across the border that they say they want, but they wouldn't rescue them when Obama was president. So, why would we think they'd want to rescue them now? The interesting thing was that you had a chart there, and it wasn't just Democrats and Republicans. It was independents, too. So, to our listeners out there that say, oh, well, it's obvious that two-party system doesn't work. I'm going independent. Talk about that.
Well, you obviously read the article, Sharon. It was interesting. They get divorced more than even Democrats do, and their children are less likely to grow up in a family unit. And, I was actually surprised at that. But I saw another thing. It was a science quiz. And they, the basic things, does, the Earth go around the sun, or does the sun go around the Earth? These, the basic things found out in the last 500 years. Do heavy objects fall faster than light objects? And the Republicans just resoundingly beat Democrats in this thing. They're much more scientifically literate than Democrats, but they didn't come in the shell gun Charlie. It was independents. Independents were even more scientifically ignorant than Democrats were. Now, I know a lot of good independents. This is really interesting information. It surprised me, but yes, you're right. That's so for whatever reason.
Independent may mean independent of your family, independent of the facts, and independent of science and literacy even. It was shocking to me too, Dana, when I looked at that, because I really did think that independents were more free thinkers, and so they would have the facts, they would understand what we understand, what makes this country great, and obviously not a clue.
I know, and I think they actually vote a little bit more Republican than they vote Democrat. And the independents I know aren't that way. But here's two separate studies, and that seems to be the facts. So it's something interesting for everyone. I know on intelligence, it is true that even if you go to the extremes of like communists, on the political spectrum, the people that are considered more extreme, like the libertarians and the communists, are very intelligent. And the ones in the middle, I don't know if I'm not offending anyone, but they actually have lower intelligence. So since we would be considered extremists, maybe we're not offended by this. And I'm just sort of joking, but we have clear, political beliefs. So, and those people tend to have higher intelligence.
Well, obviously our founding fathers were conservatives, and
yes.
They had high intelligence, and they only made up about 25% of the population at the time of the Declaration. So there is a correlation here between freedom and good thought processes.
Yes,
so
in fact, on that question, I believe the ones with the very highest intelligence on all these things actually is libertarians.
Yeah,
I think I've seen that. Yeah, which would reinforce what you just said.
Yeah. Well, so here's another question that I had that I thought this is really interesting, and it kind of flows with what we've been watching the Democrats do here lately. And I'm thinking of, I won't tell who I'm thinking of, but it says that Republicans are actually less likely to cheat on their spouses. So,
yeah.
What about that? We got some Democrat cheaters out there. I'm thinking of Clinton and.
Yeah, well, I know I've worked in Washington, D.C., and politicians are put under much more temptation than the average person. They're like rock stars or billionaires or whatever. And so there has been quite a bit on both sides on that. But if you look at the general population, the divorce rates, other things would end. And it's partially Republicans tend to be more Christian than the rest of the population in terms of atheists. I'm not talking about other religions, but atheists are heavily concentrated in the Democratic Party, and so they tend to have lower morals, less belief in the family than people that do have religious beliefs.
Well, I know we're going to have to go to a break here pretty quick, but it's very, very interesting to just go through this and analyze it with you. I wanted to just bring my last question around. When I close out this segment, and thank you, I'm going to talk about where all AUN TV network is. Talk about expansion. Is there any expansion in your future?
Yes. We've have a full power TV station in Fort Bragg, California, and that actually gets into the Bay Area, sort of like cable network. And not all the time, but part of the time, because it's in that area. So then also we do have actually two stations in Reno. We just don't have them up on the air. There's a little problem getting the signal over the hump of the Sierra Nevada. So we're working on that, but the station licenses we already have. And there can also be expansion into Modesto. We have some licenses applied for in Modesto. And we already have 7 TV stations, so it actually covers most of the population of Northern California.
Well, I know that we've really been excited about being affiliated with AUN TV Network because we know they do get out the truth. And Dana, if we have in our audience, and I know we do, people that want to see AUN TV Network, but they're not within your broadcast area, is there a way they can do that?
Currently, there isn't, but we can do that. So we will do that in the future.
Okay, well, we'll be looking.
You put up some of your shows, don't you? Correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
On YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one of the things they can do is to watch Conservative Commando radio show on television on
our website.
Say address.
Right. Yeah, ccrshow.com. ccrshow.com. Yep, they can do that. Well, Dana Allen, we've loved having you on as a guest. Thank you so much for spending time with us. Tell us how our listeners can follow you and your articles.
Sure. It's AUN-normal dash, not the lower one, TV.com. And then we have another article up that they may find of interest. It's actually the best article I've seen on the issue of global warming, very balanced. It's a climatologist. He was being interviewed on Fox TV, and it basically, just give it real quick, as he says, there's a tiny, tiny little bit of human-caused global warming. It doesn't cause any problems at all. And but he makes a good case for this, and that's also on the same website. And I recommend anyone who's interested in the subject watch it. I'm a geologist myself, and I think what he has to say is very sound.
Give us the website again.
AUN-TV.com.
Thank you so much, Dana Allen, for being on our show. Take care, and God bless you. And we're coming to you from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios and around the world on the internet. But you can also see us on AUN TV Network in San Francisco, San Rafael, Marin, North Bay, San Jose, Silicon Valley, Santa Rosa, Wine Country, Redding, Chico, Sacramento, and Monterey. And we'll be right back with our next guest. After these messages, I'll be with my co-host, Nasir Shaikh, and just wait with us through those messages.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to the secret war, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get the secret war free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America. And get this, did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The secret war is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us here at Conservative Commandos Radio Show. I'm Sharron Angle, and my co-host is Nasir Shaikh. And if you would like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, check out our website, ccrshow.com, ccrshow.com. Also, please like us, friend us, and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. And if you'd like to join our mailing list or have a guest suggestion for our show, just email Rick Trader, our producer, at rick@conservativecommandosradioshow.com, rick@conservativecommandosradioshow.com. Nasir, our guest is with us. Would you please introduce him and make him feel welcome?
Thank you, Sharon. I will. We have Mr. Paul Dreesen, who's a senior policy advisor for the Committee for a Constructive Tomorrow, the acronym CFACT. He's also the author of numerous articles and books on the energy, on the environment, and on human rights issues. Paul, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show.
Nice to join you guys. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Well, we're going to get into your article about fraud and corruption bring big payoffs. California judges provides a stage for a kangaroo court justice over the Roundup weed killer. And you basically go in your article, right away you say that San Francisco area judges have awarded cancer patients almost $80 million each based on the claims that the active ingredient Roundup weed killer caused their cancer. Originally, I guess the juries had given some of these patients anywhere from $289 million up to $1 billion per plaintiff. You said the judges actually reduced that original amount, but $80 million is still an unbelievable lotto win. And of course, these people don't want to take the fact that, in terms of with cancer. But let me ask you a question here, Paul. Other than hurting the companies and going after large corporations, who else is this really hurting?
Well, it's going to hurt everybody that has ever wanted to use Roundup. It will largely disappear from the market, or at least that's a good chance of that happening. It will eliminate no-till farming, which increases soil erosion. If you have to till your soil all the time to control weeds, it will increase food costs tremendously. A lot of people in developing countries use Roundup to help improve their food supplies and their nutrition, so they're going to be impacted as well. And this just most importantly sets the stage for numerous predatory lawsuits like this after one product after another. Talcum powder, now they're accusing that of being a carcinogen. Neonicotinoid pesticides, benzene. It's just going to be one deep pocket corporation after another that these organizations go after. And it's a very coordinated attack with these activist groups, social media, primary media, the lawyers, politicians. Everybody's in the hunt. Everybody's looking to profit from it. Even the politicians who get millions of dollars in campaign contributions from the activist groups and the law firms, they're all working together. And when you see how they're allowing fraud and duplicity, fear-mongering on a massive scale to rule the roost in terms of our science, our food, and our lawsuits, it's a pretty scary proposition.
Well, we know that the swamp in Washington, D.C. is ruled by lobbyists, and the money that's being poured into Congress and to, people that make the decisions. Is it that the law lobbyists are just that much more powerful than some of these corporations, these multi-billion-dollar corporations? I would have thought that, companies, that are under the guise of, Roundup and whatever, would have some, power backing, within the system to avoid these kind of things happening. So is it that on the law side or the juror side that they're just more powerful than they are?
Yeah, you would think that, but you would be wrong, because when you look at what's really going on with the environmental groups, big organics and so forth, the environmentalist groups in this country alone have an annual budget exceeding $10 billion. You get into the anti-GMOs, there's another big swath of money there. The organic food industry is upward of $50 billion a year. They're all working together to get rid of GMOs, to get rid of conventional farming of all different kinds, and to bring to bring the organic industry to the forefront. They've got people so scared that about half of consumers will not buy GMO-based crops or foods, where you might have corn that is BT corn to prevent corn borers from eating the corn. There are a lot of different genetically based alterations in our food supply. 4 trillion servings of those kinds of products have been dished up on American plates over the last couple of decades. There's not one documented case of an injury to a person or to the environment, and yet you go in, you see all these butterfly labels, this very concerted attack on GMO-based crops or things that cannot possibly be GMO, like salt. There's no non-GMO salt or GMO salt. But they put these labels on, and it's all intended to mislead and scare people and keep them away from a certain product that doesn't say non-GMO. So there's a lot of duplicity there. And then the other flip side of the duplicity is that the organic industry loves to say our products are pesticide free, where there's no toxic pesticides, no toxic chemicals used, but that's a lie, because there's a lot of very toxic chemicals used by the organic food industry. They just don't have to mention any of those. They don't have to test any of those. They don't have to test for residues of those various pesticides, copper sulfate, pyrethrin, rotenone, things that are nasty for bees and fish and cats and other wildlife, as well as for humans. They cause all kinds of very serious problems for humans, and they can kill people. But you don't have to mention that if you're organic. So.
Okay. Now you talk in your article saying that that glyphosate, which is the active ingredient in Roundup, was introduced in 1974. It's licensed in 130 countries, and you said that 4 decades later, over 3,300 studies from respected agencies and organizations worldwide have concluded that glyphosate is completely safe and non-carcinogenic. However, you said also
glyphosate, Nasir, glyphosate is the word.
I'm sorry, glyphosate. Thank you. But you said that, however, only one agency in France basically has said, on just the conclusion of 8 studies, that no, it's just the opposite. And it was these studies that you said the judges used to overrule the defense in some of these arguments to basically allow these plaintiffs to collect that kind of money. So I know judges have a lot of power in their courts, and then you also go through a litany, very, very nicely done, of what a good defense lawyer should have used questioning-wise, but why didn't they?
I'm not sure if they didn't think of using this approach, if the judge just said you're not going to be allowed to. I haven't been able to find that portion of the transcript. It's not been reported in the news media, but those are all other sources of cancer by the same organization, IARC, International Agency for Cancer Research in France, that said glyphosate or Roundup is carcinogenic, is probably carcinogenic, based on 8 studies and ignoring 3,300 studies. The judge said, well, we're not going to allow all those other studies because that might confuse the jury. He only wanted the jury to hear one side of the argument. So the defense for Bayer Monsanto was basically precluded from mounting an effective defense on behalf of the product it had that's being attacked by organic food groups and these lawyers. I thought it was a fraudulent, horrendous process, that kangaroo court process that was going on with these 3 cases in the San Francisco area.
Give us an idea. So, for example, once a verdict has been handed down and an award has been given to the plaintiff, then obviously defense can appeal the case. So in the meantime, how long does it usually take for the plaintiff to collect on the award that's been given, and how many various appeals? I mean, obviously it goes to the Supreme Court. It can go that far. But when does a plaintiff, see their money?
Hard to say. There may be a settlement ultimately reached. This next will go to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which is a very progressive, liberal, leftist Court of Appeals, also in California. And from there, it would go most likely to the U.S. Supreme Court, but the U.S. Supreme Court might want to see cases coming out of some other jurisdictions besides just San Francisco and the Ninth Circuit. It's very hard to determine just where that's going to go. But the bottom line is these people have no way, in my view, of knowing what really caused their cancer. I went through in my article a litany of various other things that the same organization, IARC, says are definitely, probably, or possibly carcinogenic, and it's just laughable what some of those are, but they are on the official IARC list, and yet, even though these are all substances or activities that everybody engages in, has been exposed to, has consumed, they were left out of this discussion here. And to me, there's no way the plaintiff lawyers, the alleged corporate victims, or any of these so-called experts could conclude that out of all these hundreds of substances that these various plaintiffs were exposed to, only glyphosate had a role in their cancer. We should probably take a look at some of those specific substances, because some of them are very definitely carcinogenic and some of them are just ludicrously, supposedly carcinogenic.
Well, folks, you're listening here at the Conservative Commandos radio show and on the Conservative Commandos radio network. We've been speaking with Paul Driesen, who's a senior policy advisor for the Committee for a Constructive Tomorrow. Paul, we've got to take a short break, but we'd like to hold you over for another segment. Would you be able to do so?
Absolutely.
Great. Well, as I said before, you're listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I happen to be one of your hosts, Dr. Nasir Shaikh, and on the other side, I've got Sharron Engel. And you can also watch us now on our TV station, the AUN News Network TV in Northern California. And you can also listen to us on iHeartRadio, TuneIn American Political Radio, Leading Edge Radio Network, and on AM/FM 24/7. Folks, don't go away. We'll be right back in just a couple of minutes with Paul Driesen.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America. And get this, did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
Welcome back, listeners, and thank you for staying with us here at Conservative Commandos Radio Show. I'm Sharron Angle with my co-host, Dr. Wright, Nasir Shaikh, with a shout-out to our listeners in Jacksonville, Tampa, and the Villages, Florida, Las Vegas and Reno, Nevada, Macon, Georgia, Lancaster and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Boulder and Colorado Springs, Colorado, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Long Beach, California, and now Washington, D.C. and Alexandria, Virginia. We are everywhere. We're everywhere. And we've been talking with Paul Dreesen, who's a senior policy advisor for the Committee for a Constructive Tomorrow, CFACT. We've been talking about his article, Fraud and Corruption Bring Big Payoffs. California judges provide a stage for kangaroo court justice over Roundup weed killer. Now, we've used Roundup at my house, Paul. And so, I people who use chemicals, they usually are pretty careful. But it seems to me that with what you've said in your article, it really is not the danger. This is really fear-mongering at its height.
Yeah, absolutely. If you look at the toxicology studies by a lot of these organizations, they put the toxicity of Roundup in the league with table salt, vinegar, chocolate, and coffee. I mean, it's as proven safe and non-carcinogenic as any substance ever studied on the planet, and it's probably been studied more than perhaps any other substance for decades. There is even a National Cancer Institute study. They call it the Agricultural Health Study. 20-some years long, 54,000 farmers and commercial pesticide applicators and their spouses studied for more than a couple of decades, and they found no cancer glyphosate link. Those were all ignored by the judges. And when you get into the questions that I raise in my article here, it gets pretty hysterical when you think about all the other things that this same France-based agency has decreed are carcinogenic. One of the questions I would have asked the plaintiffs is, how often have you eaten bacon or hamburgers or steaks or hot dogs, other processed meats? How many times have you had hamburgers and hot beverages? Because those are also listed as carcinogenic. And of course, you've got sunlight, and they also list alcoholic beverages, aflatoxin in peanuts, asbestos, cadmium in batteries, anabolic steroids, malathion, parathion, the emissions from high temperature food frying. All these things are as equal to, according to IARC, equal to or worse than glyphosate in terms of carcinogenicity, but the judge ignored all of that. And that, to me, is a travesty that makes this a kangaroo court proceeding.
Well, and according to your article, they didn't even ask it. They did not even ask it. So the next thing is, I want to know about this other question that you said they should have asked. Large quantities of glyphosate have been manufactured for years in China and other countries. How do they know it's Monsanto? How do they know that?
Yeah, there's no way of knowing. There's no way of knowing where the glyphosate came from that was used in those particular Roundup applications. There's no way of separating glyphosate from all these other carcinogens that these people were clearly exposed to. I mean, a couple of the defendants, or the plaintiffs, were in their 70s. That's a lifetime of exposure to multiple carcinogens. Then you've got your DNA, your own personal DNA, your own predisposition to getting cancer. You've got your own eating habits, sleeping habits, your general lifestyle, whether you're smoking, whether you were exposed to secondhand smoke. Another one of IARC's carcinogens is shift work. So if you ever had a job where you were working different shifts in different weeks, you were more likely to get cancer. So how do you separate any of those out from all the rest and say, no, it's only glyphosate that has the impact on these four people that got these $80 million awards?
So we have a kangaroo court. We have a judge that's not allowing the right questions to be asked. We have attorneys on the other side that are making millions off of these cases. What's the judge going to get for it? Why would a judge be partisan in this way?
Well, I can think of a couple of reasons. Number one, they get bullied into doing this. The media gangs up on them. Social media certainly does. You saw just with Mitch McConnell the last couple of days, they rat out where these people live. The judges, their kids, where the kids go to school, where the judges live, where the McConnell lives, and they get these protesters out in front of their homes in the middle of the night or in the middle of the day screaming at them, wanting them lynched, claiming, we know where your kids go to school. There's constant pressure from social media. These judges provide millions of dollars for judicial campaigns or for the various legal associations to recommend or not recommend somebody for a judgeship. So there's a lot of different reasons why a judge might want to go along with this. And then there's a predisposition that comes from more than a decade of screaming and hollering and fear-mongering about Roundup and other supposed carcinogens. So it all works together, and it works against the corporate interests here that are trying to provide us with better, more nutritious food at lower prices, on less land, with less water, with fewer pesticides, with less erosion. And if those are all taken away, we're going to have to devote far more land, for instance, and far more water to growing our crops and using stoop labor. Maybe the lawyers can volunteer their kids to go on the farms and weed all the fields, but that's what we're going to end up with. A lot more acreage taken out of wildlife habitat and devoted to growing crops for our food. There's a serious problem here, and I don't think our courts, our Congress, our other legislators, our regulators have come to grips with what we're dealing with right now.
Well, I think that you make a really good point about these attorneys' children. I'm wondering if anybody's looking at the next generation when they're just out to get that last dollar or make all that money, because really, we're talking about this, aren't we? When they won't allow us to grow crops in the most economic way, that really cuts down on the future.
It does, tremendously. And it's, as I said, it's not just economics. It's the amount of water, other pesticides, other chemicals that are used that are not being tested. It's the amount of land that we have to devote to our crops. If we have to double the amount of land so that everything can be grown organically, that all comes out of wildlife habitat. And that's not good either. That's very harmful to the wildlife we're supposedly trying to protect and increase. So there's a lot of issues here that are just being swept under the rug.
Exactly. We've been talking with our guest, Paul Dreesen, about fraud, corruption, and big payoffs, how the California judges provide stage for kangaroo court justice over Roundup weed killer. Paul, would you tell our audience how they can follow you, read your articles, just keep track of the things that you're doing?
Sure. All my stuff shows up on townhall.com, on What's Up With That, WATTS upwiththat.com, on CFACT, CFACT.org, and a lot of other websites around the country. I'm happy to cover things that other people are interested in. If they want to contact me, we'll see if I can delve into some of these other fascinating issues that we all ought to be paying attention to.
Well, thank you so much for being on our show. We really appreciate it. Take care and God bless you.
Thank you so much.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America. And get this, did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV.
And once again, we want to welcome you back to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. My co-host today is Sharron Engel. And for rebroadcasts, please check out our website, ccrshow.com. That's ccrshow.com. Also, you'll find our radio show there, rebroadcasts of our TV show. And also, you can like us, friend us, and follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. And with that, Sharon, our next guest is with us. And as you always do, please make her feel welcome.
Well, it's an honor and a privilege to reintroduce our friend Kelly Bucar Vlahos, who's the executive director, having been writing for the American Conservative for the last decade, focusing on national security, foreign policy, civil liberties, and domestic policies. She served for 15 years as a Washington bureau reporter for Fox News and at the WTOP News in Washington as a writer, digital editor, and social media strategist. She's also worked as a beat reporter at the Bridge News Financial Wire and Homeland Security Today, and as a regular contributor at antiwar.com, a native nutmegger. She got her start in Connecticut newspapers, but now resides with her family in Arlington, Virginia. Kelly, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Thank you so much, Sharon.
Well, we want to talk to you about an article that you didn't write, but we're very interested in it. It's a Fox News article. It's preparing to withdraw thousands of troops from Afghanistan as part of a proposed Taliban deal. Well, there's just so much in that title there. Yes. We're brokering deals now with the Taliban. I thought they were terrorists. I didn't realize we recognized them as a legitimate negotiating force.
Yeah, well, I guess now after 17 years, we're starting to recognize that we have to do something to end this war and end the violence, which has continued without abatement for 17 years. The biggest issue here is that the Taliban now holds more territory than it did 10 years ago or even 15 years ago. The war isn't working. You know, we have 14,000 troops on the ground right now. They are aiding a struggling Afghan military to hold whatever they can and to go after the terrorism and the terrorists that continue there on the ground. That can't last. The American people want to get out of this war. The Taliban is willing to talk with us. They're not willing to talk with the Afghan government yet. But the good news is that the talks are happening, and they've actually had some successes, which is different from some of the negotiations that have gone on in the past, which have faltered. They've had many fits and starts. Now, thanks to the Trump administration making a serious effort, there are real negotiators on the ground. They're in Qatar, in Doha right now, Americans, Afghans, and Europeans. And it might not be music to the ears of people who have been used to calling the Taliban terrorists or harboring of terrorism in Afghanistan, but we realize now that diplomacy probably is the only way to extricate from this war.
Well, I guess my first instinct is, can we trust them? You know, they come to the table, they make an agreement. Right. Can we trust them to keep that agreement, or are we just, like you said, tired of war and ready to settle for anything?
Yeah, I don't have a crystal ball, and you're absolutely correct. They have shown no ability to keep promises in the past. They are continuing to attack civilians every day and on the ground. And now that there is yet another presidential election going on, there are 20 candidates vying for president in Afghanistan right now. They have threatened and actually followed through with attacks on election officials and their staff. There was 20 people killed last weekend. There was another, dozens of people killed the weekend before. So, yeah, you're right, Sharon. There is no reason to believe that they will keep to any promises they make in these negotiations. They are as tired as we are, though, that they are emboldened by the fact that they have been able to not beat us tactically, but to keep us bogged down in a quagmire there. Also, we have to recognize that Pakistan has a lot to do with the virility of the Taliban in Afghanistan. And they're not at these talks, which I find that is a troublesome aspect of all of this. We all know that the Pakistanis have been funding and harboring the Taliban over the border for this entire war. And if you ask any expert here in Washington worth his salt, they will tell you that without the Pakistanis' help, the Taliban would not have been so successful at holding ground and replenishing their ranks. So I would like to see how they are involved here, if at all, because I don't think you will have a a solid agreement unless the Pakistanis are at the table as well.
Well, it seems like we've had some fairly good success with talks with North Korea and also with Iran and sanctions. And just it seems like there has been a different tactic taken now with Afghanistan. I've kind of liked what we've been doing with North Korea and Iran. How come it seems like we're changing? Are we not changing, or we're just trying to get to the table so that we can do these tactics? What's going on here?
I think it seems like that from the outset, but we're dealing with a different enemy here. So we can't really sanction them because they aren't a functioning government, like the Iranian regime. We are working with the Afghan government to fight the Taliban. So sanctions aren't going to work. The airstrikes are our biggest, I guess, negotiating tool, which the Trump administration has stepped up the airstrikes. He took the sort of the handcuff, so to speak, off of the military so that they could fight more openly and basically more aggressively with the Taliban when he came into office. That hasn't worked. So there's not much you can do to keep them on the run. So I think that the Trump administration has been pretty clear that it wants to get out of this war, and the Taliban is willing to negotiate. What they want from us is obviously to see a withdrawal from the country. What we want from them is a promise that not only will they stop the attacks, but they won't harbor other terrorist groups. So when a power vacuum does open up, and it will open up because the Afghan army is weak, the Afghan government is weak, and once we leave, we can't make any bones about it. There's going to be a huge power vacuum there. The question is it our responsibility anymore to prop up this country after we put almost $1 trillion into this war? That's not counting all the costs to our veterans. That's just counting the basic costs of the military operations and the reconstruction. By last estimates, we are funding $45 billion a year in this war, and $5 billion of it is for an Afghan army that's just not ready to take care of its country yet. So how long this can go on before we're hurting our own? We have been depleting our resources, and we're hurting our troops by the constant redeployment of this small group of soldiers and Marines and airmen that have been fighting this war for us. And there's only so much stress that we could put on that system.
Well, I'm I guess a veteran watcher of the Vietnam War. I hate these wars that we get into, that we don't win, that when we leave, as you say, there's a power vacuum, and everything that we fought for there, it seems to be lost. It just breaks my heart. I can't say it any stronger than that. It breaks my heart for the resources, but mostly for the lives that have been spent fighting this war. And I guess I was thinking sanctions against Pakistan. If they're the ones that are fueling the fire, can't we at least stop that fuel? Talk to me a little bit about the comparison there, because it's striking to me how this seems like Vietnam all over again.
Yeah. On Pakistan, we have been withholding, and forgive me because I don't have it in front of me, but I think it's like $1 billion in aid that they have grown accustomed to getting, and the Trump administration has been withholding that aid. When we go there, we get a frosty reception. They came here, they get a frosty reception. There is this weird standoff between the Pakistanis and the United States in terms of their negotiations. I'm with you, Sharron. I say we push them harder. I don't know why we don't. I agree with you. Maybe that's the tack that we need to take. You're absolutely right about the comparison with Vietnam, because I talk to a lot of veterans, and I've been covering this war for a long time, and I was covering it in 2012 when IEDs was the weapon of choice, and you had all these young men that were getting, blown up from their waist, like right under their legs on these IEDs planted on the pathways there. They lived because we have the medical technology to keep them alive now that we didn't have during Vietnam. But their lives are completely changed and shattered forever because many of them can't have children when they go home. And these are like 22-year-old guys. And now they need lifetime care. They can't have children. Yes, they will live. We do have the means to keep them in a lifestyle that's much more comfortable than 50 years ago. But still, the waste. And they're not counted among the dead, but they are counted among the casualties. And there's tens of thousands of casualties that we don't really acknowledge because we have this collective amnesia about our wars. So it's like if we don't see it in the news every day, we sort of, that was in the past. But, a lot, like you said, these veterans have to live with these injuries for years. And when they wake up and they say, this isn't worth it. And when there was a Pew poll last week or so that came out saying that the vast majority of Iraq and Afghanistan veterans do not believe that their wars were worth it, that what they fought for was worth it. And it's a little more for the Iraq guys, but it's still a clear majority. I think it was like 54% or something. I don't have it in front of me. But, that was the first time you actually saw the majority of veterans saying it wasn't worth it. And your heart, like you said, your heart goes out to them because they want to feel like they accomplished something. And they see this going on for 17 years and these negotiations, and it's like fits and starts, and where are the Pakistanis? And it's like, come on, it's troubling.
Well, there's another element here, and I hope Rick gets into it with you, and that's the woman element. There is a real threat, I think, to women there in Afghanistan, and I want you to talk a bit with Rick about that, but we need to go to a break, Kelly. We are talking with Kelly Vlahos about the Afghan war and our withdrawal. We're coming to you from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios and around the world on the internet with TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, American Political Radio, Leading Edge Radio Network, and the AM/FM 24/7. And now you can watch us on the AUN TV network in Northern California. I'm Sharron Angle. I'm here with my co-host, Rick Trader, and we'll be right back with our guest, Kelly Vlahos.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America, and get this. Did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
Once again, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader, suffering from hay fever. My co-host today is Sharron Angle, and our guest this segment is Kelly Vajo. She's with the American Conservative. Kelly, thank you for holding through that break. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, Rick.
Well, we're discussing withdrawing thousands of troops from Afghanistan as part of a proposed deal with the Taliban. Hey guys, I'm with you. I don't think we can trust these people. These people know nothing but war. I don't think they've ever been at peace, at least for the past several decades. They beat the Russians. Kelly, why didn't we learn a lesson from the Russians?
Because it's called hubris. We figured we are the exceptional American nation, and that the Russians were too weak and too corrupt and not capable, that we were, and we're learning a very hard lesson as we speak now, because now we are at the negotiating table with the Taliban, who we had written off as terrorists and thugs and
I thought we had that war won. I thought that was under control. I really did, Kelly, and I appreciate you coming on. I really do, and I say this all the time because this is where I learn. I learn from guests like you that the Taliban now controls more land. They control about 50% of Afghanistan after nearly $1 trillion. Roughly 3,000 American lives. And what's this gotten us? I know we got Osama bin Laden. All right, I know we got him. But my gosh, this is a disaster. This is a disgrace. And you guys are right about Vietnam. Here we go. This is just like Vietnam all over again. I can see the same thing happening the moment we walk out of there, just like the moment we walked out of Vietnam, the North Vietnamese walked back in. And I'm a little perplexed here. I can remember a conversation that I had with a young man at a wedding. This was before we went into Afghanistan, before we went into Iraq. And he was very opposed to it. And at the time, I wasn't so opposed, but I can remember what I said to him. And that was, I hope at the end of this, we don't get another wall with thousands of names on it of our dead men and women that represent nothing but destroyed families. I'm sorry, ladies. I'm a little beside myself right now because I see the same thing happening once again.
Well, and just going back to an earlier conversation about the injuries. I mean, we may well have that wall, or could have had that wall, if we didn't have the medical advancements that we have today, because so many of these young men and women who fell to IED attacks would not be alive today if we were in Vietnam 50 years ago. They were ripped apart, and we were able to get them out of their medevac and into surgery in Germany within 24 hours. We couldn't do that in Vietnam. So, thank God it was only 3,000, but it's tens of thousands of casualties that who knows if they'd be alive today.
Wow.
And so it is, because it is a longer war. It's 17 years, longer than Vietnam, more money than Vietnam.
Unbelievable.
More blood and treasure. I mean, it's just...
Well, Kelly, we're not the only ones that are skeptical of this deal. Senator Lindsey Graham is also very skeptical of this. He tweeted out, very interesting to see what kind of deal is made with the Taliban in Afghanistan. One thing I know for certain, Al-Qaeda and ISIS will never be at the negotiating table. This is from Lindsey Graham. The other thing is, we're talking about pulling out, but we're not talking about totally pulling out, that we may leave between 8,000 and 9,000 troops.
Which is the number of troops that were there when Trump came into office. So, for people like me who want to get out, that's not great news.
Unbelievable.
And I don't
Sharon brought up a point. The women in Afghanistan are very worried about a deal with the Taliban. Can you talk about that, Kelly? Why they would be worried?
Well, absolutely. I mean, before 9/11, the Taliban had taken over Afghanistan. They had overrun Kabul, and they were establishing local governances in the villages and towns and cities. And women were forced to, again, cover up, live under even more strict lives and rules than they were under their husbands under normal Afghan life, which is pretty strict to begin with. Children were let out of school, never to come back. Gays were driven underground. I mean, it was a totalitarian state, a religious theocracy that punished any sign of individualism or freedom from women and people in general. So of course, they are worried. I mean, the Taliban, they're still targeting schools. So as recently as this month, they were targeting schools. So we are putting a lot of faith and talk with a group that, despite all of their talking, is still attacking civilians, attacking children, attacking women.
Kelly, they don't want peace.
Yeah. Well,
they absolutely do not want peace. And when you talk about sanctions, I mean, what do you sanction? I mean, their biggest export is drugs. I mean, what else do they have to export there in Afghanistan? Rocks? I mean, there is really nothing there. And I wanted to ask you this question, Kelly. Why have we failed to help them build up an army to defend themselves?
I think there are many different reasons for that, and I don't want to entirely blame the U.S. government like I usually do, because I believe that they had their heart and all the best intentions to build up the security forces so that they can take responsibility for their own security. That's been the mantra from the beginning, and like I said, we've dumped billions of dollars into this effort. I think the blame is putting our faith in the Afghan government to keep their side of the bargain, which they were supposed to get their act together on the civil side, end corruption, make a safer place for Afghans to live and work with us in good faith. And they haven't done that. So as much as I want to blame the big bureaucracy, which, there's always trouble there. We have generals reports all the time about waste, fraud, and abuse. But the fact is that the Afghans have not cleaned up their own house.
Well, Kelly, I think one of the problems here is they've never had a democracy. They've never had a real government. And we're talking about not just 10 years or 17 years or since the Russian invasion, but ever. They never have had a stable government. So what makes anyone think that there is any kind of a leadership pool there.
Yeah, that was our first mistake, is to try to impose our vision of democracy on this country.
It doesn't work. And I can tell you agree with me, Kelly. This democracy building doesn't work. This let's teach them to build their own army to defend themselves. It doesn't work. And I'm just beside myself. $1 trillion, 3,000 lives lost, countless other lives destroyed and wounded, and we've got nothing to show for it except for we got Osama bin Laden. Osama is dead and General Motors is alive. I'm sorry, ladies. It's just so fruitless. I hope, Kelly, I hope we learn a lesson from this and we never get into these wars that we can't win, that we don't go in to win in the first place.
Well, I'd like to, you go back to the Clinton administration, in which they felt like they felt like they fixed Bosnia. They bomb and then they send in a bunch of peacekeepers and aid, and they felt so emboldened, like this is what we do. We go in and we liberate people and we fix things and we build. Colin Powell said it. You broke it, you fix it. Well, we broke it after 9/11 in a way which was, we went there to go after, the terrorists that were, responsible for 9/11. We got them, but then we proceeded to break the country. And then we said, well, now we got to put in billions of dollars fixing it and holding it up and making it an example for the rest of Central Asia and in the Middle East, that and they felt, and there's still people in this town that feels that way, that it's our responsibility to foster and maintain this world order that is in the mirror image of the United States. They do not learn their lessons, and I'm afraid that we might not learn this one either, because there are plenty of people warning against this, including my magazine, 15, 17 years ago. And nobody, right, because the establishment in Washington believed that it could work, and they still do. They still poo-poo our magazine for saying it's not working. We need to find a way to get out.
Yeah. Kelly Vahos, executive editor, The American Conservative. Kelly, tell us a little bit about that magazine. Where can people find out about it?
Well, they can find out by going to www.theamericanconservative.com. We were started 15 years ago, 2002 now, in opposition to the war in Iraq, for many of the same reasons that we're talking about now, that it was a preventable war, and that it was a war of choice. Mm-hmm. And it sinks our country into quagmires overseas and detracts from taking care of people here. And, I feel we were right. We continue to be right. We have a lot of smart people writing for us, foreign policy and national security, and we're still fighting the good fight.
Kelly, you have a website?
Yes, it's me personally. Well, I'm at
the magazine.
Yeah, www.theamericanconservative.com, and we're at AmConMag on Twitter, at AmConMag.
All right. Kelly Vahos, we want to thank you so much for joining us. Take care and God bless.
Well, thank you so much.
And this is the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. My co-host today is Sharron Angle. Don't go away. We'll be right back with more right after this break.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving, and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America. And get this, did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
And welcome back. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Drader. My co-host today is George Landrith. And I want to give a shout out to the folks who listen to us on radio stations in Jacksonville, Champlain Villages, Florida, Las Vegas and Reno, Macon, Georgia, Lancaster and Pittsburgh, Boulder, Colorado Springs, Milwaukee, Long Beach, California, and now in Arlington, Virginia, and Washington, D.C. We're also seen on the AUN television network in places like San Francisco, Sacramento, San Jose, and places north there. And with that, George, we do have our next guest with us. The honor of the introduction is yours.
Excellent. We have Charles Lehman with us. I suspect many of you have read his stuff. He's a great writer, and he writes for the Washington Free Beacon. That should probably be one of your bookmarks, quite frankly. Great stuff there. And he writes about policy. He covers things like crime, law, developments in the law, drugs, immigration, social issues. And so with that, Charles, welcome to the Conservative Commandos.
Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. You've written a really good article about the what's going on in politics today, where we're being called upon one party, and we had a budget deal that I think many people have a good reason to be disappointed with. But for some, that's not near enough spending. They want $200 trillion more. So so to me, I kind of scratch my head and say, really. So let's talk about that a little bit. What's going on and what all this spending is supposed to accomplish.
Sure. So the article referring to myself and my colleague David Rutz, we put together all of the spending proposals that have been put out by Democratic candidates for president. And we looked at all of the ones that we could identify where somebody had assessed how much they were going to cost over 1 year or 10 years or annually. And we put all those numbers together and we came up with one big figure, which is $210 trillion, which is a pretty big number, the number that you were pointing to. Obviously, it's the case that no one candidate wants to propose $210 trillion of spending. 25, 26, however many candidates they have now want to propose in total $210 trillion of spending. Some of that's redundant. So, for example, one of our estimates, a Green New Deal writ large, which a number of candidates have called for, will run about $94 trillion is one estimate. That's sort of the biggest budget item. And then, but even when you break things down by candidates, even the smallest candidates want to increase spending by $500 billion. Bigger candidates, if you're Andrew Yang, if you're Bernie Sanders, who's the biggest spender, wants $36 trillion new dollars in spending by our estimate. So, really, our goal is to give a sense of, regardless of which candidate you're talking about, these are enormous numbers that come out of the taxpayer's pocket or come in the form of increased government borrowing, which will eventually be paid by somebody.
Right. Yeah, I often point out that debt is just an agreement to pay future taxes. That's and I guess if you don't pay it, then the country goes belly up. But what you're really agreeing, when someone says we need to spend more money, they're saying at some point, either you or your children need to pay more in taxes. That's the argument. But this is, I guess, my question. We hear lots of talk about. I hear people refer to candidates as, quote, moderate. Supposedly Amy Klobuchar is, quote, a moderate. Now, that's the first time I've ever thought of her as a moderate. I just I look at her track record in the U.S. Senate. I don't see someone who sounds very moderate to me. And then some people have accused Joe Biden of being moderate. And I kind of look back on his Senate career, and he was usually among the, he was in the top quartile of liberals. So I'm trying to figure out this number you've thrown, $210 trillion. That doesn't sound like a lot of moderation to me.
Yeah, and I think part of it says something about how far the Democratic Party has gone left in just the past 3 to 8 years, depending on how you do the math, or depending on where you think the trend starts. And there are all sorts of analyses if you look at Democratic voters and how they have moved. If you look at Gallup's data. The New York Times did an analysis that I really like, where they looked at manifestos from political parties over time, and then what they were trying to show was that the Republican Party is far to the right of all the other major democracies parties. What they actually showed is that if you look at the Democratic Manifesto in 2000 versus 2016, they veered far to the left, while the Republican Party has basically stayed somewhat to the right, more to the right of Europe, but we're more right-leaning nation than any of the countries in Europe. So I think moderate is really kind of a relative concept. Is Joe Biden more moderate? Joe Biden has said that he wants to spend $5 trillion on climate. Bernie Sanders wants to spend an estimated $32 trillion on Medicare for all. Is Joe Biden moderate? Well, it depends. Who do you ask?
Yeah, there you go. One of the things that I think is interesting about this whole debate, if Ronald Reagan were to run for the nomination, if he were alive today and could run for the nomination in 2024, my suspicion is he would be able to win the nomination. I don't think that the party has moved dramatically out of the range that he's in. I understand he'd be very old and all that. I'm pretending that we could bring back a Ronald Reagan like we remember in the 60s and 70s and 80s type thing. But I'm not even sure that Barack Obama could win the nomination in his own party, and he was president just 3 years ago. The party has moved so far to the left that I hear them talking and acting as if he was some sort of shill for the right, which I think that's very revealing in and of itself.
Right, and I think this is something that we saw last night. There were reports that confidants of Obama were very upset about last night's debate because they spent most of the debate trashing Barack Obama and saying he did a terrible job. My favorite storyline from the early primary has been Jay Johnson, who was Obama's Department of Homeland Security secretary, basically saying, yes, there's a crisis at the border, yes, we need to do border enforcement, and just being upbraided by Julian Castro, by other Democrats in the field, just being attacked for saying, well, were considered common sense things 8 years ago, like we need border enforcement. We can't just let people in. We can't just decriminalize border crossing. I've been predicting that, Jay Johnson is going to be on stage at the RNC next year saying, yes, Donald Trump, because he's not these guys. And I do think it's important that even the median House Democrat is not necessarily that far to the left that the House passed an anti-BDS resolution recently, for example. But that especially the dynamics of the Democratic presidential primary are clearly rewarding excess and rewarding big spending and rewarding sort of veering as far left as possible. It's Bernie's primary, so to speak, even if he's not necessarily going to win it.
Right. Yeah, I would argue it's rewarding lunacy, but you're being nicer than I would be. But yeah, so you've got someone like Eric Swalwell, who you mentioned in your article. He's dropped out now, but I kind of asked myself why he ever bothered running, and I think you could fill in the blank for probably 2/3 of the people now running. It's like, what possessed them to run? I mean, I look at some of them and I say to myself, heck, I think I'm as qualified as virtually every one of them, even if you don't look at ideology. And I bet you I could also poll somewhere under 1%.
Yeah, I mean, so, I think I said to a friend earlier today, in biology, they have something called the Red Queen effect. Where there's a line from Alice in Wonderland that I'll botch, but the basic idea, there's a line about the Red Queen orders people to keep running just so they can stay in the same place. In biology, some evolution happens just so that different species can keep up and compete with each other. So there's a certain amount of running that everyone has to do just to stay in the same place as everybody else. Once the primary hit a critical threshold, once there's a point at which sort of, once Pete Buttigieg declared, basically, it was sort of, there's no reason not to get into the primary, and the free several hours of name recognition on national television is a major boon to anyone who does, and so giving that up, the opportunity cost of not running, is at this point higher than the opportunity cost of running, which is certainly for, so for who's ever heard of Jay Inslee? Who could name how... after the debate 2 nights ago, the most Googled name in the state of Montana was Steve Bullock, which is funny because it seemed like Montanans were going, "Oh, that guy's our governor, huh?" You've never heard of their governor who's running for president. So I think that there's no reason not. And a lot of these people end up in the cabinet. A lot of these people will end up maybe running for the House or the Senate, but there's an interest in doing so, if for no other reason than because this primary is already so big.
Yeah. You mentioned Buttigieg, the mayor of it's escaping me, Indiana. City's escaping me now. Where Notre Dame's located. There we go, South Bend, Indiana. He's basically a failed mayor of a small town, of a small college town. So I'm trying to figure out if every town that's roughly the size of South Bend, if every failed mayor that's not doing very well, if they're all qualified, we could have 3,000 or 4,000 yahoos running for president. I kind of look at him and say he's making a fool of himself, even though I guess people act like he's a serious candidate. I look at him and say, this guy was running city council meetings poorly this time last year, and now he wants to, quote, run the free world. And I think to myself, he has to be delusional. I mean, this to me is a sign of mental illness.
Well, and I think Buttigieg was seen as an attractive candidate. He was almost chair of the DNC, if you remember, when Tom Perez won. That was a contentious race, but his name was in the ring early, and I think he sort of knew he could capitalize on that. But no, it's clear that he's done a poor job. Myself and my colleague Nick Rowan, especially, he's done more than I, but we've collaborated some on reporting on violent crime in South Bend, which has been a major issue. And constituents, police officers, public community groups say Buttigieg needs to resign. He's not mayor. He's not doing the job of the mayor at the moment because he's too busy running this vanity campaign for president. But I mean, I also think, I think two things. One is that I think he's operating the same rationality. He had that name recognition, and so it made sense to try to go for something big. And maybe he'll run for governor or senator, and whenever Todd Young is up for the other guy. And the second thing is, I think that, Buttigieg fits a certain profile. He is smart, he's well-spoken, he's clearly liberal, he speaks Swedish, or maybe it's Norwegian, I forget. They want to stick him on the cover of Time magazine. He's sort of clearly liberal, but in a way that's inoffensive to the New York Times set. And so I think there's an obvious role for him as media darling. And that played out for a while, and now his stock has dropped, but he was able to cash in on that in terms of, everybody's listening to this knows name Pete Buttigieg. Everyone who's listening to this knows name Kamala Harris or I guess someone knew Elizabeth Warren's name. Jay Inslee, people know that name. People know Marianne Williamson now. That's really good for business.
Fair enough. It bumps your Twitter numbers, I suppose.
Exactly.
But we are against the break, and we've got a clock. We've got to take a quick break. But we'll. I know that my partner in crime, well, not real crime, but according to the to the New York Times, the Washington Post crime, that kind of thing. But Rick Trader and I will he'll pick up where I've left off. But I just want to remind our listeners, you're listening and you're viewing the Conservative Commandos. I'm George Landrith. My good partner and friend is Rick Trader. And of course, we're coming to the Conservative Commandos radio network, broadcast all across this great nation, and then also on the AUN TV network in California. And if you're not near one of the many, many broadcast towers, whether radio or television, you can always catch us on Al Gore's amazing internet, TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio, you name it, we're there. Our website, ccrsnetwork.com, ccrshow.com. You can view us there, watch or listen to us there, whichever you like. We truly are everywhere. Don't go away. We will be right back.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America. And get this, did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
And thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with George Landrith. George is the president and CEO of Frontiers of Freedom, and yours truly, Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network. One more time, I'd like to direct you to our website, ccrshow.com. That's ccrshow.com. You'll find rebroadcasts of our radio show there, our TV show there, and a lot of terrific articles and a lot of great information. Our guest is still with us, and that's Charles Lehman. He's a staff writer for the Washington Free Beacon. He's written a very interesting article, and I can just imagine the research that he put into this. Democrat candidates call for more than $200 trillion in new spending. Charles, thank you for holding through that break. We appreciate your time. Charles, in your article, you write here, many of the proposals are spread over 10 years, such as Joe Biden's $750 billion public health care plan, Elizabeth Warren's $2 trillion investment in green research and manufacturing, Julian Castro's $970 billion for affordable housing. And then you can add in the $94 trillion for this new Green Deal. Charles, when I read your article this morning, reminded me of a quote from Alex de Tocqueville. The American public will endure until the day the Congress discovers that it can bribe the public with the public's money. I mean, these people are ridiculous. And Charles, we don't hear about the budget anymore, do we? The budget deficit, that's all going out the window. These plans, in my opinion, are totally realistic, but is the American people buying into them?
Yeah, and clearly, some subset of the population is buying into them. How many is unclear. As I said before the break, much of the dynamic of the 2020 primary seems to be determined by what the particularly far left base of the Democratic Party wants. They aren't the general election voters. They aren't even the sort of quieter Democratic voters. The more the portion of the Democratic Party that self-identifies as moderate or even conservative. And I think those folks understand that, there are more and less attractive spending proposals. I think that while it is not necessarily good policy, a lot of people from a polling perspective are very attracted to Medicare for All. It's very easy to sell that to them. I think that there are ways in which it's a bad idea, but understanding and explaining why that is healthcare policy is really complicated. Nobody really gets it. And so it's very hard to communicate the complexities there. But I think a lot of these plans, and part of the point of the article is that clearly what's being done is seeing who can top whom on naming the biggest number. So we have a chart in the piece. Kirsten Gillibrand, who is polling at -6% or something, wants to spend $10 trillion in the climate. Beto O'Rourke and Joe Biden want to spend $5 trillion in climate. John Delaney, who also nobody's ever heard of, wants to spend $4 trillion in the climate. So there are these, who can run up the biggest price tag, and none of it will come to pass. I think there is just sort of a certain amount of deficit dovery that people want, that the primary voter, that certainly candidates believe primary voters want. And so they're trying to signal to them, hey, I'm totally willing to throw $10 trillion at the problem. I'm totally willing to spend $30 trillion on a UBI. And that says to people, oh, okay, that person shares my priorities even if I don't agree with the program. But those priorities sell to a certain subset of the population.
Charles, you and David did a great job in doing this report. $200 trillion in spending ideas. Whenever I hear a politician throw out a number, why is it in my mind I always want to double it? Because that's what seems to happen. But, we're seeing and hearing these proposals coming from the left. By and large, do you think it's good that they're actually throwing these numbers out, that they're trying to run as far left of each other as they possibly can? For right-minded thinking people to see this and say, these people are out of their minds.
Yeah, I think, here's what I'll say. I think that there's a way in which Bernie Sanders is very admirable, because he has come out and said, my Medicare for All proposal, I will need to raise taxes on people making above $29,000 a year. And median income in the United States is something like, forget, 45, 54, something like that. So the overwhelming majority of working tax-paying Americans will pay more taxes under Medicare for All. And he's arguing that it's a good deal, but he's willing to bite the bullet and say, yeah, not just the ultra-wealthy, but everybody's going to need to pay more. You contrast this with somebody like Kamala Harris, who hasn't put out a cost estimate for her Medicare alternative plan, but is saying only people make over $100,000, only people who make six figures or more will need to pay more taxes. That's not going to be true. They're going to have either the direct tax burden will go up, or the indirect effects of an increased tax burden on high earners or on capital gains or on business transactions will filter out into the rest of the economy. So I think there's at the very least something admirable about being willing to come out and say, yeah, everyone's going to pay more taxes. I think it's worth it. You may disagree as the voters, but I'm going to put it out there. It's informative for the voters. It's better than being deceptive. I happen to think it's bad that I have to pay more taxes for Medicare for All, but as somebody who makes a journalist salary, which is not big money, But I appreciate the fact that he's willing to say it, and I think it's good for voters that they're able to hear it.
Charles, you know what I really appreciate? I appreciate great journalism. You and David have done a terrific job on this article. And one of the things that I was impressed with, for somebody out there who might say, well, this is just a bunch of fake news. Well, along with your article, you have a spreadsheet of the spending proposals, along with links to articles and references of where you get these figures from and where these politicians are quoted and their ideas are put out there. So seriously, again, a terrific job writing this article. Charles, please tell our audience where they could read this article and follow your work and the work of the other great journalists at the Washington Free Beacon.
Yep. So as you mentioned, I write for the Washington Free Beacon. So does my colleague, David Rutz, who's the managing editor. David did a lot of that research, so I want to make sure that he gets as much credit as possible. You can see both of us at freebeacon.com, FREEBEACON. You can also follow us. I'm on Twitter. He's on Twitter. If you tweet, we're there. I'm at Charles F. Lehman, LEHMAN, and he's at David Rutz, RUTZ. So check us out.
Charles, when you're doing this research, when you're looking at these numbers, was there one particular item, one particular thing that really made your eyes roll?
Yeah, I hadn't realized. So the big ticket items, the three big ticket items. One is Medicare for All. Another one is Andrew Yang's Universal Basic Income. That's about $30 trillion. And the third is the Green New Deal. So I knew that all these plans, I knew about those. I knew that they were going to have huge, they were going to have huge costs. I didn't realize two things. One is I didn't realize the amount of money that people have promised to spend on combating climate change, just the enormous scale. Like I said earlier, Kirsten Gillibrand wants to spend $10 trillion combating climate change. Maybe you need that, but that's a huge figure. The U.S. gross domestic product is about $19 trillion. So Kirsten Gillibrand wants to spend more than half of what the economy produces in a year combating climate change. And then the other one is, and we highlighted this in the piece, is how much people want to spend on schools and especially student debt reduction, forgiving all student debt. I've written elsewhere, and a bunch of other people have written elsewhere, mass student debt forgiveness, very popular right now. 30% of the U.S. population, about 30% of the U.S. population has actually been to college. About 45 million people have student debt, and those people are disproportionately likely to be higher earners because they disproportionately likely to have college degrees. There are downsides to student debt. There are ways that I think we should rethink the model. But like a mass student debt forgiveness is giving huge quantities of government money away to the people who need it the least. So that it's consistently shocking to me that priority goes so unchallenged in the Democratic field when it's a clear case of giving money away to college-educated elites as opposed to poor people who really do need government aid and do need government assistance. Rather that $1.5 trillion went to people who genuinely needed it rather than college grads.
Charles, whenever I hear numbers and ideas thrown around like this, and you hear free college for all and Medicare for all and this for all and that for all, hey, all these for alls are paid by somebody. And generally speaking, unless somebody intends to live in poverty their entire life, they intend to live in public housing, they intend to get welfare and food stamps, they're the ones that are going to have to be paying for all this free stuff. Unless they intend to be failures in their lives and live on the government dole. Just blows my mind. But Charles Lehman, Washington Free Beacon, again, we want to thank you so much for joining us here on Conservative Commandos. Please tell our audience one more time, give out your website.
Yep, Washington Free Beacon, freebeacon.com. We cover politics, we cover policy, we cover foreign policy, really all... We cover the stuff that the mainstream media doesn't. We tell those stories that they don't want to tell because we disagree with them.
And what we do here at Conservative Commandos, we read your stories and tell our audience. So it's a good thing. One more thing, Charles, I want to thank you so much for making the effort with the Skype and everything. I understand you had to download it, do it all for us. We really appreciate that.
Sure. Thanks for having me on.
Again. Charles Lehman, Washington Free Beacon, thank you so much for joining us. Take care and God bless. All right. But for right now, we are out of time. We got to run. We got to go. Take care. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow on TV and on radio.